Good afternoon. You're watching News9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Our top story at this hour, huge development now coming in by the way of Indian Army, which has launched a second blow, or a scathing attack rather, on United States hypocrisy on its trade tariffs. The Eastern Command of the Indian Army has posted an image of a news report dated 5th of August, which reads that US arms worth $2 billion were shipped to Pakistan since 1954. And on your screens, that headline that has been put out by Indian Army exposing the hypocrisy of the United States, the Eastern Command tweeting a news report there on your screens which talks about US arms worth $2 billion which have been shipped to Pakistan since 1954. All right, my colleague Pragya Bakshi joining us live from the newsroom. Pragya, the Indian Army, of course, trying to nail US when it comes to sanctions, suggesting that it's been helping a state which literally is a sponsor and harbor of terrorism.
Absolutely, and what this tweet essentially means, besides the fact that now India is going all out. You know, initially India did not heed Trump's these threats, verbal threats, especially on social media, because we are a professional country and, you know, we were holding back channel talks, and that is what we gave weightage to. But since yesterday, the response has now been targeted at the US administration and the entire US system at large. The statement from the MEA yesterday and today, the Indian Army tweeting, basically telling the US that you are questioning us over our trade interests with Russia, but you have had trade deals, arms deals with a terror sponsor, Pakistan, our immediate neighbor, with evidence of terror activities in our country as recently as Pahalgam. And even then, in the aftermath of Operation Sindoor, we saw the US, enabling an IMF bailout package for Pakistan. So that is what essentially the army is pointing out at, the hypocrisy. And US is dealing with a terror state, no less. You know, this is not just two countries doing trade. This is the United States conducting deals, agreements, trade with a terror sponsor, Pakistan. Now, I want to point out this report which the Indian Army has tweeted. It is from 5th August 1971. That is when Bangladesh was still East Pakistan, and India was preparing to strike and free the minorities in Bangladesh, in fact create Bangladesh. And in the entire process, India continued its communication with the US, seeking, pointing out the human rights violation, grave human rights violations by West Pakistan against East Pakistan. And I'll tell you something about this from the book written by Gary J. Bass, an American journalist, who has pointed out in the book Blood Telegram that when West Pakistan was cracking down on East Pakistan, especially on the minorities there were US vehicles, US vessels, armed vessels, equipment that were being used by West Pakistan. So there is a hand, indirectly of the US, blood on its hands from 1971, and that is essentially what is being pointed out here. The report basically talks about
Pragya, stay with us.
At the time.
Stay with us. Thank you for putting that in perspective. Also joining us on the show is Major General Rajan Kochar, who's a strategy and defense expert. Major General, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out. I think you heard my colleague Pragya there putting in perspective on what that tweet by the Indian Army essentially goes on to say. The Indian Army also coming to support the Indian government when it comes to telling the US to leave out the hypocrisy time and again when it comes to human rights violations, and especially when it comes to a nation's right to self-determination or to protect its borders. US has always emerged as a big brother, telling countries what to do, what it deems right, and what they should be doing. But in this case scenario, I think it's a wrong, enemy or a wrong state to make an enemy with, especially when India has shown restraint for years and years, has given documentation, dossiers of various terror attacks that have happened on Indian soil, for which Pakistan has been directly responsible.
I entirely agree with you. You see, India should not be treated like a soft state any longer, because what has been the impression which normally the United States, as you said, the big brother, he has always taken India for granted. And if I tell you the brass tacks, Pakistan armies more than 45% equipment today is of US origin. You have the Cobra helicopters, you have the M113 APCs, the TOW missiles, the F-16 aircraft, which we are, I mean, well aware. And since you actually mentioned 1954, 1954, Pakistan got into an alliance with the USA called the SEATO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, and thereafter in 1955 CENTO, Central Treaty Organization. This alliance was meant to be a counter to Russian influence in Southeast Asia, and Pakistan was a major part of this alliance. And therefore, you see the influx of weapons into Pakistan from 1954 till today has been the result of these kind of associations America is having with the Pakistan, and it is a double speak. You know, what America actually says and what America does is entirely two different things. Today, it is accusing India of buying Russian oil. What has America been doing all this time? European Union is still continuing to buy oil from Russia. See, these people are not looking inwards. Today, if you take this example of this headquarter Eastern Command report, it very clearly brings an important fact into the open. And the fact is that in spite of Pakistan being put in the FATF grey list, was a ban on the IMF. Everything was happening in Pakistan. At the same time, US was supplying military equipment to Pakistan. So it clearly implies that you recognize that terrorist activities are taking place in Pakistan. You put Pakistan under the FATF grey list, and then you take it out for no inexplicable reason, because those conditions under which Pakistan was placed under the FATF grey list were not fulfilled. Still, Pakistan was taken out. So it actually smells of a larger conspiracy. My reading is that US will not like to have a strong India. It wants to counterbalance India through Pakistan. China, it cannot contain. It tried to counterbalance China through India, but to its bad, this thing, US has not been able to influence or dictate terms with India with regard to China, and we continue to have trade with China, because see, the ultimate analysis is that every country has to look for its own national interest.
That's right, absolutely, and that's what Major General, come to think of it, India is doing, has been relatively quiet all this while when it comes to trade deal, trying to figure out a best possible solution to the ongoing tariff. But it does look like we have reached sort of a deadlock for now. Pragya continues to be with us. Pragya, you have any more details?
In fact, I have a question if we can take from Major General Kochhar, is that, India is America's go-to ally when countering China is concerned, especially in the South China Sea and Indo-Pacific region. So, is this going to have any bearing on these strategic ties, especially considering Army's response now, Army wading into the entire debate? You can take that question to Major General Kochhar.
Major General, are you hearing? All right.
Yes, yeah, I'm here.
I believe, I think there was a question asked there. Were you able to respond, sir?
No, I didn't actually listen to it. If you can Kindly repeat that
That
question.
Major General Kochar, the question is that India is America's go-to ally as far as Chinese hegemony in the South China Sea and Indo-Pacific region is concerned. So, given that now army is wading into this, war on trade with the U.S., is this going to have any bearing on these strategic ties?
All right. Essentially, I think what Pragya is also trying to ask, Major General, and I have to wrap this up. So another question added to that is, apart from the strategic ties between India and the US on the back of, the hostilities which are now coming to fore, with Indian Army also now weighing in, I have to ask you, sir, as far as US's hypocrisy is concerned, that's something that you brought to light. We have not forgotten Iraq. World remember what happened in Vietnam. We also know that there have been, various tranches of military equipments given time and again to oppressive countries. At a time like this, what should be our strategic response?
See, you have to understand one thing, that the US-India ties are very, very strong. Deep roots are there. We have the COMCOSA agreement, we have the Limoa agreement, we have the Compact agreement, and we have the Indus agreement. There are a number of strategic agreements which US and India have signed with each other. US and India are also technology partners. So I feel that these statements of President Trump is a measure to try to impose the US policies or his own policies on a country like India, who have very strong and very vibrant ties with the United States. And I think that we should be very, very careful in actually reacting, because we are deep into larger contracts with US. I would like to bring an example of the jet engine 404 and 414. Our entire AMCA project, our entire Tejas project is dependent on these jet engines. And at this belated stage, I don't think India has got any other option to go anywhere else. So I think we'll have to tread this very, very carefully, because Trump, the way he actually behaves and acts, today he will give some statement, tomorrow he may give a different statement. So we need not react to every statement what actually Trump says, because sometimes he is saying what he does not mean also. And many times we have actually seen 40%, 100%, 300% tariffs imposed on China,
Right.
has been brought down to 35%. So I think we'll have to negotiate with the Americans. We should not be reacting to every statement of Trump. I think in the long run, US-India ties are very, very strong, very, very stable, and they cannot be derailed by just one or two statements. So I think the viewers also need to understand one aspect, that every day there is a new statement from Trump. India need not react to every statement. India need not agree to any statement of.
Absolutely.
And our foreign policy has to remain consistent. If we have to buy oil from Russia, we will buy, and no power on the earth can stop us that.
All right, and in fact, India has very categorically denied that it's stopped buying oil from Russia. Our position is clear. When it comes to trade, India will keep the interest of its farmers and its MSMEs at the center. At the same time, Major General pointing out that there may not be an implication or a spillover of the trade tariffs and the statements coming in from the US president on strategic ties between India and US. Thank you very much, the two of you, for taking time out for joining us on the show.